It's Halloween week in the NFL, and things are going to get scary because some teams in the second half of the season are going to use it to ramp up for the playoffs, and others are just going to completely miss them. So today, we're going to run through our playoff predictions at the midseason mark in the NFL. Now, on your screen now, we have the four teams on bye in week number 9. And I do want to also say we're still going to go through all of our normal weekly, topics as far as game picks, breakdowns, player props. Everything you need for week 9 is a one-stop shop. But four teams are on bye this week. Two AFC, two NFC. We have two teams that are at the bottom of the barrel in the Browns and the Jets, and the other are at the top of the mountain, seemingly, in the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you think needs the bye week the most, whether if it's, for whatever reason that you may see fit? Who do you think needs it the most?
Well, I think out of these teams, even though they're true contenders, but they're riddled with injuries, Tampa Bay needs is big time. I mean, they have so many injuries on both sides of the ball. And you have been talking about it the whole entire year, man. Like, they've been dragging some of these wins out. It's come down to Baker being an MVP candidate, putting the team on his back, and showing up in these big time games. But they need a lot of help on both sides of the ball just due to injuries and depth. And I mean, after the bye week, they got to play New England, then they got to go to Buffalo, and then go to the Rams. And so they have back to back road games. Three straight contenders. And it's like they have a very tough time coming up. I mean, after that, the schedule gets easy. They got like Carolina, Atlanta, but it's not too bad. But these next three games, they're going to need everybody full health.
Yes, and Chris Godwin might be back for those, but we know Mike Evans will not be. But when we talk about these playoff predictions at the end of the video, those are things that we've taken into account. So again, stick along for the ride. Now, last week we were 9-4 differently. We got there differently, but for our entire slate of week 8 predictions, we were 9-4 on the season. We're about 70% on the year. Amir has a 1-game advantage, and this week it might come all down to this Denver and Houston matchup. On your screen, in the early slate, you see all of our game picks. We agree in pretty much every single one. But there's a game where the Denver Broncos, who are the hottest team in football, they've won 5 straight games. They're going to Houston to take on the Texans, who have been struggling for the large part of this season. But here's the thing. The Denver Broncos would not have Pat Surtain in this game, and Nico Collins will be back for the Texans. So, Amir, I'm assuming that's why you're leaning with the home team in this one.
Yeah, this was a tough pick for me. I believe no, yeah, I think Denver's favorite at like -1.5
Yeah,
or
it's a pick 'em.
yeah, like it's really close. And I've been underselling Houston this whole entire year. I was overselling them beginning of the year, then I started underselling them. But I loved what I saw last week. I don't know what Seattle did to them. I don't know if they knocked them all upside the head, but they elevated their offense. I don't know what happened last week. They dimed Robert Saleh and that Niners elite defense up. And I just think this week right here, where Denver, their defense has had a lot of lows. They looked better last week, but they have a lot of moments where they get carved up. And without Pastor Tan, I think Riley Moss is going to have a long day. I think Nico Collins. I think even a guy like Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins. I think those guys are going to get involved. Dalton Schultz might get involved. And I just think this is a game also too where I mean Denver's offense is so limited. I mean, me and you have been talking about the whole entire year. I mean, it's the Sean Payton offense this year and last year. It's just boot, screen, and check downs. I think Houston's pass rush is going to completely just get past that Broncos O line, and I can see Houston winning this game in a fairly low scoring game. But I just take them, being at home here for the second game in a row.
Being at home definitely gives them, I guess, the biggest advantage to me in this one. But I think both rosters have a lot of injuries, a lot of questions. And for me, it's which pass rush do I trust the most? And honestly, I think Denver has a better chance of winning after Stroud than vice versa. But also, Denver's offense, Amir, you don't think it's gotten better the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. Last week they were great, but I mean, when you play against Dallas, it's like playing 7-on-7.
Yeah, right. Which is that's a crazy statement for a national football team. But hey, that's what happens when you trade Micah Parsons away.
Yeah.
But in that one, again, it should be a fun one, nonetheless, in the early slate. But I also want to talk about this Indianapolis going to Pittsburgh game where we do both have the Colts as 3.5 point favorites taking the game on the road. But this is the reason, for me at least, why I took the Colts. In the modern era, as far as points per drive, the Colts are not only the best in the league today, they are the best among all of these great teams in the last 25 years.
Crazy.
They are averaging more than 3.5 points per drive. Now, we know that they don't punt often, but this means that they are always moving the chains. They're always putting themselves in scoring opportunities and positions. And that's a large part of the reason why they're the best team in the league record wise. Amir, as great as Mike Tomlin may be at home, as much as a spot that they're in that they need a bounce back win after dropping two straight games, I just don't see how this Colts offense slows down at all. And a large part of this is due to the run game and that great offensive line. Amir, your thoughts on how insanely efficient this Colts offense has been on a per drive basis?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And the Steelers' defense have been terrible since last year. Ever since that halfway point since last year, they've been absolutely garbage. And I just don't see an avenue in which the Steelers can really stop them. I would say I think the points totals at like 50 and a half, 51 and a half.
Yeah.
This is going to go over. I think this is going to be like a complete shootout. I think the Colts defense isn't that good either. But it's like, I mean, they quite literally can't be stopped on offense. And this is insane. I mean, Daniel Jones is making it look easy.
Yeah.
JT is the MVP right now. And it's like, I mean, their receiving core is super underrated. They have speed, route runners, length and height, jump ball receivers, a great tight end in his first year, arguably the best offensive line in football this year. I don't see them being stopped. I think they win by almost two scores.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of those receivers, at least on my end, here in a little bit. Here are the late slate games. Of course, Carolina and Green Bay. We'll talk about that one later as well. But a lot of teams coming off of bye, like the Rams, like Seattle going to Washington. That should be a fun one on Sunday night. And Monday night, I think that's just going to be a freaking shootout. Like you said, 7-on-7. Kyler's back for the Cardinals. They've dropped 5 straight games. They need a win. And Dallas, they are just all offense, no defense, all gas, no brakes. So that
Mm-hmm.
one should be a fun one there on Monday night. But let's go into power rankings heading into week 9. And this one, mine haven't changed too much really from a couple weeks ago. The only thing that I have changed is that finally Kansas City, I'm back on the train. You know, fully, we wanted to see how they looked when they got
Yep.
Rashi Rice back. But now that we've seen Rashi Rice back, I honestly think that Kansas City might be the best team in football. I just don't see how anybody stops this offense, and this defense has continuously gotten better week after week this season. So as of right now, the Lions at 1, Colts at 2, Eagles at 3, Chiefs at 4, and the Tampa Bay Bucks at 5. And that's important because, Amir, you have the same exact top 5 as of right now. The only other note I want to throw out there is the Seattle Seahawks. They have, from the preseason until now, have jumped up a spot or more every single week this season. This week it finally came to an end as Kansas City has just been too dang good to start the year. Now, Amir, like I said, same top 5. We have the same top 10 teams, but your bottom half is a little bit different than mine. So run us through 6 through 9 of your power rankings.
First, I want to talk about Kansas City. People try their hardest to throw around this game manager sort of, persona over Mahomes when it's like, I mean, this dude, it doesn't matter who's with him or not. Now he finally has speed, and now everybody's, is just finding reasons to hate. I mean, he's quite literally the best quarterback in football still. I think he's playing the best right now, outside of maybe Baker. And people are just completely calling him overrated, saying he shouldn't be leading the MVP race, which is like, it's not crazy to say. I mean, he should be leading the MVP race right now, in my opinion. He has
Yeah.
held it down. I think he's great. And you brought up a great point. I think Kansas City is probably the best team in football right now. I just couldn't, justify putting them at 1, because a team like Indy, they deserve to be over. Indy deserves to be at least top 2.
Yeah.
But to talk about 6 through 9, Seattle could be higher, and maybe I'm underselling Buffalo a little bit. But me and you kind of talked about it a couple of days ago. I think Green Bay is arguably the most overrated team in football. It might be an unpopular opinion. I just think the offense is very standstill at times, very basic. I just don't see their ceiling as an offense being extremely high. As much as the defense is great, I mean, we watched them lose against Cleveland, which, that happens, right? You go ahead and you tie against the Cowboys. And then last week against Pittsburgh, they did not look good against Pittsburgh at all. They did not look good. I just think Pittsburgh, I think their defense is so bad. That's why they ended up winning.
Yeah.
But the Rams, on the other hand, the Rams are at 7. Honestly, the Rams are a team where they could be 10th, they could be 1st, they could be 6th. It doesn't matter. They will always be my dark horse come playoff time. Always. Like,
Yeah.
it's always going to happen. It is. And it's always going to happen. And the thing about Buffalo, too, is Buffalo at 8 for me, they could be too low, but the thing about me is, I'm biased towards Buffalo. I'm biased towards Josh Allen because that's my favorite player. But the one thing I'm also equally as critical. I think Buffalo's roster isn't that great. I think offensively, their identity, which the offensive line is great, but defensively, they suck. And they literally can't stop anything. I think this game versus Kansas City on Monday is gonna, or not Monday, but on Sunday is gonna be an absolute shootout. And I brought it up a few weeks ago when they put it against New England. I think all the glaring problems you're seeing is a foreshadowing for all the problems that's going to happen in the playoffs.
What's scary about Buffalo and their future, of course, they've been knocking on the door as far as getting to the Super Bowl and winning it with Josh Allen, but they might lose Josh Brady or excuse me, Joe Brady this offseason because he's a hot commodity as far as being a potential head coach in this league. And if they lose him going into an offseason where you don't have weapons around Josh Allen outside of James Cook and occasionally Dalton Kincaid, that's going to be a scary sight for this offense because going into the future, if they lose Brady and they lose maybe a weapon or two, or hey, they just don't make any changes at all, that window might be as close to shut, more so than ever, here in this Josh Allen era of the Buffalo Bills. The last thing I did want to say here, for a team that's won 5 straight games, it's amazing that we still have Denver at 10. But
It's
again,
crazy.
they have some injuries, and we know
It
they've
is
kind
a
of lucked into some of those wins.
and it's crazy. It is a nasty 5 game win streak. Like, it is gross.
Yeah.
It is so gross.
Yeah, I mean, if they were dominant in those 5 games, then hey, maybe we'd be talking about them in a different light. But
Yeah.
let's get into it, man. Week 9 best bets from our favorite game lines to our props on the week. Here are the numbers on the season. I'm 9-5 at player props. Amir's 1 game behind. Same thing with the game lines. But overall, if you are guessing at a 50% or greater rate in the sports betting field, especially with this much data, it's incredibly tough to do, but it is trustworthy. Now, Amir, I think we can say that. So down week for you. Of course, that was my week 2 weeks
I
ago
got
where I
dude,
got swept in the bad way.
I got screwed so bad this past Sunday. I mean, because first of all, Rattler got benched for
Yes.
Charlie Shuck, which Rattler threw that pick six, but there's no reason why he should have got pulled that early. He got pulled, so he ended up short, and he needed I think 60 more yards, and had a whole quarter left to go. And then you had Carson Wentz. He had a career, not career, but a season-ending injury, and
Yeah.
so I got screwed on that. And then Chicago gets absolutely smoked by Baltimore with no
I
Lamar,
love
and
that
I'm
spot
like.
too.
I'm like, dude, I cannot catch a break. I can't catch a break, man.
Well, if the worst thing that you're doing in a sports betting field as a straight line is 50%, well, you're making it here in again this space. But let's start with the game lines, and then we'll go into player props, and then finally our midseason playoff predictions. Now, for me, my favorite game line is simple. I'm trusting this team just bounces back as a whole. They're getting healthy. They might have Ricky Pearsall and or Brock Purdy back for this matchup. But even if they don't, they're playing a depleted New York Giants team. I like the Niners on the road to go into New York and get a big time win. They're 3-2 this year on the road. And honestly, I just like Robert Saleh to be able to get after Jackson Dart, mess with his mind. Even though Jackson Dart has showed a lot of great flashes, I'm going to trust the great defensive mind of Saleh to, take advantage of the young rookie, especially now because they're going to be really one-dimensional without Cam Scatterbo in the lineup. So San Francisco on the road, I think they start to get hot going into the playoffs, and I like them to kick it off here with a win against the Giants on the road. But Amir, you're going with a team that is playing a quarterback that has very little experience at the NFL level, and he's also coming off an injury.
So it's crazy. At first I chose KC money line, obviously. And it's funny. I was sitting in class and I'm just thinking like, am I disrespecting Buffalo? I mean, because do I see Buffalo losing 3 out of 4 games? I can see it, but just to be safe, I went with another pick that I'm very confident about. I took the Lions at -8. I think they win by 2 scores. I'm not
Yeah.
a fan of JJ. I'm not a fan of this Vikings offense at times. I'm not a fan of that Vikings defense. I think they're great up front, but it's the same issues last year. They give away too many big plays on the back end. And the Lions, I mean, the Lions are on pace to chase history here. I believe they've won 4 straight home games by 15 or more points.
Oh,
I think and they need one more to tie the record. And I mean, every win this year, let me say these numbers: 52-21, 38-30, 34-10, 37-24 and 24-9. So they've covered this in every single win this year. I think they win by 2 scores. I don't see an avenue in which JJ can even throw the football. I think Kelvin Shepard, similar to last week, last week we saw in primetime against the Bucks. I think he's going to get blitzed all game. I think it is going to be a hard day for JJ.
Yeah, I mean, at home, the Lions are a different animal, no pun intended. And hey, when these playoff talks come around, I think they're like Buffalo. I think where, though they have some defensive questions, that home field is maybe more important to Detroit and Buffalo than any other team because they are a completely different team in front of their home crowds. But player props, I'm going to go back to that important AFC matchup between the Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is a line that's been covered in 75% of the games this season. Look, for the Colts to be one of the highest scoring, most efficient offenses in NFL history, that means that they continue to move the sticks. And what does that mean? I want to target receivers or receiving options against the Steelers defense that can't guard a single soul. So Michael Pittman, the number one guy in this Colts offense, over 4.5 receptions. Daniel Jones has been targeting this guy 8 to 9 times a week. I like him to get 5 receptions against the Steelers defense that let Jamar Chase get 16 receptions a few weeks ago. So Michael Pittman, I'm all over it this week. If not, maybe even a Josh Downs, 2.5 or 3.5. But even if this line, Amir, gets bumped to 5.5 for Michael Pittman, I like that as well going into Sunday. I just think that this Colts offense, whether if they're up or down, to move the sticks, Michael Pittman will be a big part of that. Now, for you, you're going with someone who has 14 total career passing touchdowns and only 1 interception, which was his first start against them. Against the Dolphins in his career, he's coming off an injury, Amir. Who are you going with?
I'm taking Lamar over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And so at first, I took under 1 interception. I think it was like minus 210. But I just think this is better value, and I'm even more confident in this. I believe this is at like minus 160. But this is the avenue in which I'm kind of buying into a narrative here. I can just see the Ravens offense, them getting their guy back, them getting Lamar back. I can see them clicking on all cylinders. I can see just his leadership in that locker room, his morale, and that factor on his team. I can see them coming out. I can see Derrick Henry having 100 yards rushing plus. I can see Lamar throwing for 3 touchdowns. I can see just like a burst of life that's being put into this offense here. And so I think Lamar throws for at least 2 to 3 touchdowns here. And another thing, too, that kind of made me lean towards this spot. Statistically, the Dolphins' pass defense hasn't been terrible. The issue has been their run defense. But I just think where he's been out for 3 to 4 weeks with the hamstring injury. I could just see his play style changing a little bit, him sitting more in the pocket and him just throwing dimes. And so I think he covers this line.
For more confidence about this line, this was going to be my play this week, Amir. This was going to be my number one player prop. And you got to it before me, so you get to use it for the show. Lamar Jackson, I think, dominates tonight against the Dolphins, who it might be Mike McDaniel's last game as the coach of that team. Now, my second player prop, I'm a pseudo backup Green Bay Packers fan, and that's because of my fandom of their quarterback, just like I was with the Saints for so many years. But this week, I wanted to target the running backs because we saw James Cook had over 200 rushing yards against the Panthers last week, so I wanted to get Josh Jacobs this week. But he's been dealing with a calf injury the last 3 weeks. And who has stepped up in those 3 weeks as the main guy in this offense? Tucker Kraft. He's had 14 receptions for over 240 yards and 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. The Panthers can't guard a soul. I think that this offense, if they're not only on Josh Jacobs, they need to throw to somebody. And in a favorable spot, Tucker Kraft over 55.5 receiving yards. I think that's a very easy spot to go with. So 2 receiving options in my player props this week. But Amir, you're going with another elite quarterback, maybe the best player in the world in a big-time matchup at home. What line are you going with, though?
Actually, first, I want to say it's just funny because when you look at a line like Tucker Kraft, or really any tight end, and you see 55 yards, you're like, whoa, a tight end getting 55 yards? But he quite literally can cover that in 1 reception. Him just stiff arming 3-4 DBs in this cover with these.
He's like a young Kittle, where you just want to get the ball in his hands and then let him go to work because, like last week, he had 140 yards.
That was
so
crazy.
That's the kind of player that we're talking about.
That was crazy. And so my play this week, it was a bit random. I was sitting there thinking, this is more of a schematic play, and more so not narrative play, but just kind of predicting on how the pace of this game is going to go. And so I've Josh Allen over 6.5 rushing attempts. This is the lowest line I could find, and it's crazy. He's never went under this line in his career against Kansas City.
No.
in his career. So, I mean, I'm going to read these numbers off for you. So, he's played them 9 times in his career, and he's had 11 attempts, 12, 12, 10, 12, 11, 11. And then the first 2 games of his career was 7 and 8. And so I think this is a game where you'll see a bunch of QB sneaks. You'll see the Bills having to roll out Josh Allen, and we've seen his receivers cannot get open. I think he's going to use his legs. He's going to do everything he can to truly win this game. And we know he plays better against Kansas City. I think he's going to put his body on the line against this team because we know how this game is going to go.
Yeah.
And one more thing too, that's crazy. The Chiefs are giving up the most rushing yards to quarterbacks in the league, which is nuts, like statistically. And so I think he's going to run the ball close to 10 times here. I think he might have like 50 yards rushing. And honestly, surprising as it sounds, I also like him to not throw a pick this game. I think he's going to be real conservative, play safe, and I can see him using his legs here.
Yeah, I mean, again, you read off the numbers there. So for you guys at home, that's the entire game log. It's not just one game, but he's averaging 11 attempts a game on the ground against the Chiefs in his career, including the playoffs. And we all know that Josh Allen has Mahomes' number in the regular season. I think they've won, what, 3 or 4 straight against the Chiefs. So Josh Allen, he's going to have to be a big part of the reason why they could potentially win again. But for Thursday night, people, here's a long shot parlay. And Amir,
Love it.
speaking of one of those oddball quarterback rushing plays tonight. Tua, 2 rushing yards. It can happen. 2 rushing yards is a straight. And I know that you'll probably be all over that. But look, Lamar Jackson, like I mentioned, I love this line. It was going to be my play this week. Amir got to it first, but I love it. I love it tonight. I think he honestly throws for maybe even more. So Lamar 2 touchdowns. He has to throw to somebody. The Dolphins struggle against tight ends. So Mark Andrews 3 receptions. I also kind of like Isaiah Likely for 2 receptions as he returns to the lineup. But then Tua on the other side is playing a Ravens defense that just kind of sucks. Let's just be honest. One of the worst in the league. So Tua over 200 passing yards to bring it to a plus 300. So 10 turns to 40. If you want to bet it tonight, I like all of these plays as straights as well. Amir, your quick thoughts on this long shot parlay?
I love this a lot. I love it a lot. I think Lamar, that passing touchdowns line is an absolute lock. For me, I think I ran something a bit similar, not to this, but I'm going to tell this exact play. I might even nuke it. And he brought it up Tua for 2 rushing yards. I might throw it on top of this to
Yeah,
make like plus
I
like
honestly like
500.
Tua for 2 rushing yards, to be honest.
Yeah, seriously. But I love this a lot. I love it.
Well, let's go into our playoff predictions. Again, mid-season, so we are accounting for everything. Current roster construction, the vibe around the organization, and of course, their upcoming schedule. That's the most important thing. So Amir and I both looked at upcoming schedules of every single team we'll talk about today, and that's how we came to our, again, playoff ultimate standings at the end. Now, on the NFC side of things, we have the same exact order as far as the division winners. We have the Lions getting the #1 seed, winning the majority of their games to close out the year. The Eagles at #2, despite having probably the best roster in the league. The Rams at 3 and the Tampa Bay Bucks at 4. What's funny is that this was my exact prediction before the season, and I had the Rams coming out of the NFC going to the Super Bowl. But like we talked about earlier, teams like Buffalo, teams like Detroit, I think home field matters more to them than, let's say, a Philadelphia or a Kansas City. So I think the Lions know that they need that home field advantage throughout the NFC side of things, especially against the Eagles. So I think they gun for it more so than any other team. So that's why I got the Lions at 1. But any thoughts about how these 4 teams are ordered, Amir?
I completely agree. I have the same exact order. I have the Lions at 1. I just think their ceiling in the regular season is much higher than honestly anybody in the league. I mean, they run the score up. They completely dominate teams at home. You brought up a great point. I mean, they gun for home field advantage. We saw last year. We saw the whole entire Lions team, guys like Amon Ra, Monty, them going on online, complaining the fact that they were tied with the Vikings going into Week 18.
Yeah.
They want home field advantage. They want that 1 seed, and I think that's what they're going to go for.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the wild card teams here. Again, the Rams loaded NFC West, but I feel like we're going to talk about some more teams in their division. And then for the Tampa Bay Bucks, they're the only legitimate team in that division. And hey, by the time the playoffs come around, they should have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and everybody, Bucky Irving back, and that offense will be able to beat anybody on any given weekend. The 5th seed, though, we are going with the Green Bay Packers. This is a team that historically, after the midseason mark, is usually the hottest team in football. Whether if you go back to Aaron Rodgers or now with Jordan Love, they always seem to lean on the run a lot more in the second half of the year. They have a favorable schedule. And honestly, again, Matt LaFleur, I don't know what it is, but he just coaches his best, I guess, scripts second half of the year. So Green Bay, they don't get the 1 seed, but they are the 5 seed, and their defense will head to Tampa Bay in these predictions to set up a very interesting matchup, man. Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield. I don't know who I would root for in that one. Just kidding. I'm going with the best quarterback in the league. At number 6, I'll say this. When I looked at these schedules, Amir, I actually was surprised how easy of a schedule that the San Francisco 49ers have the second half of the year. And honestly, I don't think that they're our better football team than the team that we have at number 7. But due to tiebreakers, San Francisco, to me, just, I guess, got the edge according to the system that we used. So for the Niners, they're at number 6. They will go to LA to play the Rams, a team that they've already beat this season. And then finally at number 7, the Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold. Who would have thought? Early in his career was looked at as a bust, worked his way up to being a starter in Minnesota, then gets paid $100 million. And he doesn't stop there. He leads that team in his first year to the playoffs. They would go to Philadelphia to set up a defensive matchup in that one. Amir, your thoughts on Green Bay, San Francisco, and Seattle?
I also have this exact same order. San Fran, I don't see them missing the playoffs. I think their defense is way too good. I think Kyle Shanahan is way too good of an offensive mastermind, and they're only going to get healthier. Kittle finally gets back. He looked, a bit better. You can tell he's definitely still a little banged up.
Yes.
Ayuk is eventually going to get back. Hopefully, he's going to be 100%. Jawan Jennings is getting healthier and healthier, and Christian McCaffrey is back to vintage Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And Purdy's also going to come back possibly this week. And so I just think San Fran, they're a team that you're never going to count out. They're similar to the Rams from the aspect of they have an offensive guru as their head coach. And so as long as their coach is there, they're going to have a shot at beating teams, and they're going to make the playoffs. And so they're going to be full strength. I don't see them. Honestly, I could see them beating – in the playoffs, I can see them beating Seattle, Green Bay, maybe even Tampa. I think they're a team where they can upset even a team like Detroit out of nowhere. I just don't see them ever missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, with a coach like that, you always have a chance in these key games.
Yeah, definitely. And then Seattle's at 7. Seattle is such a weird team, a really weird team, because they continue to keep exceeding expectations. I mean, even offensively, people complain about not getting Kenneth Walker involved. I'm one of those people. Their run game isn't really reliant, but Darnold and JSN, I mean, this is absolutely crazy to watch. And their defense is very inconsistent, and they still win these games. It's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Amir, as of right now, if these are the exact, I guess, standings and we are 100% correct, who would you have coming out of the NFC as of right now?
So as of right now, so are you saying like if they're full health or
Yeah,
just right
you're
now?
just assuming everybody will be, healthy when the playoffs come around. Who would you have coming out of the NFC?
So assuming that everyone was healthy, I'd take the Rams at the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite coach ever. I'm gonna agree with that because, well, I had him as the 3 seed before the year coming out. I'm sticking to it because I love Sean McVay, and who doesn't want to see Puka Nacua at a bigger stage along with Devontae Adams? Now, in the AFC side of things, the only thing we really disagreed on was who gets home field advantage. Though it means a lot to Buffalo, when I look at this Kansas City team,
Oh man.
it's hard to imagine that they lose more than like 2 games the rest of the way. So I had them as the 1 seed, Buffalo as the 2 seed, and then we both have Indy as the 3 seed. But Amir, you have Buffalo as the 1 seed. Why do you think they get the edge over Kansas City at the end of the season? Could it just be simply the game that they're about to play?
Yeah, it's crazy you brought up Casey's schedule. I'm an idiot. I didn't look at this before I joined the show. This schedule was very easy. I think Kansas City gets his 1 seed. And the issue is before the year we all had Buffalo getting the 1 seed because the schedule was easy.
Yes.
But I just think them losing to Atlanta and also losing to New England. I mean, they very well should easily only have one loss here. And I think they lose to Kansas City this week. So actually, correct that. I think Kansas City gets the 1 seed.
That's huge, for a team that's
Yeah.
been there and done that so many times.
That
To
I
get the
mean
one seed advantage.
that's straight up terrifying. That's
It's
terrifying.
clockwork for them at this point.
Yeah.
Indy, we've talked about already. They've had a historically efficient offense this season. Jonathan Taylor looks like the MVP, though he won't get it because the MVP is a quarterback award. Indy, though, they will close the season strong. I do want to say that they have a relatively easy schedule. It's a lot of divisional games, so on paper they should win them. But we know divisional games can get tricky because divisional opponents will get up and play for more so than just the win. So Indy, I think, can drop a couple games. We still look at them as outside contenders going into the playoffs. Now, we're going to skip the 4th seed because that's the AFC North winner. We're going to talk about that in a moment. The 5th seed is the New England Patriots. Don't be shocked because they might have the easiest schedule second half of the year. Amir, if you want to pull it up.
It's so easy.
They might have the easiest schedule. And Mike Vrabel, with how disciplined they play, with how great Drake May has looked so far this season, he's everything that I imagined. I had him as the second best quarterback in that class, and he's playing even better than those expectations at this point in time. Do you have the schedule for New England pulled up, Amir? Because we can run through it. There's not many games I see them losing, maybe outside of Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, so they got Atlanta this week. I think they smoke Atlanta. They look terrible. Then they got to go to Tampa. That's tough. They got the Jets, Bengals,
Yeah,
Giants, and then Bills, Ravens, and they finish the season off with the Jets and Dolphins.
yeah. I mean, I think that if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, that's a win. Burrow's not going to be back for the Bengals most likely, so that's a win. You already beat Buffalo. Maybe you could do it again. Don't be shocked if they end the season with 11 or 12 wins, is all I'm trying to get at here. Denver at 6. Look, they've won 5 straight games at this point in the season. They're the hottest team in football. The offense is getting better week in and week out, or at least more comfortable. And the defense has shown flashes of greatness. As of right now, though, I think the injury to Pat Surtain will hurt them in the long run. I think if Surtain was healthy, they got a shot at this division, but Surtain being out is a huge blow. So they're at number 6. Now, number 7, we battled with a few teams, but we ultimately settled on Omarion Hampton returning to this Chargers offense. And with Jim Harbaugh now having his bell cow back, they will play Chargers football. They will run the ball as much as possible, pass when they need to, and they have great weapons around Herbert, so when they need to pass, they can make those key plays when they need to with Justin Herbert at the helm. So the Chargers at 7. And then the AFC North winner, the Bengals are out. The Browns are out. We're not going to talk about them. It comes down to who do you trust? Mike Tomlin with a couple game advantage and Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback in his last season to make a playoff run? Or do you trust the Ravens, who are now getting healthy with one of the best players in the world back at quarterback, and John Harbaugh, who might be coaching for his job per all these reports? I'm trusting the latter, Amir. It's a shocker because of how bad that defense has looked, but the Steelers' defense is just as bad as the Ravens. I'm going to say Lamar comes back with a spark. I say that they get on a run here to close off the season, and they might only finish with 8 or 9 wins, but I think that might be enough to win this AFC North division. Your thoughts, Amir?
I completely agree. I mean, looking at this Pittsburgh schedule, I mean, I had Pittsburgh winning the division, and I texted you before the show, and I'm like, nah, like fix this. I mean, Pittsburgh, I'm going to read these games off. So they obviously play Indy this week. Then they got to go and play the Chargers. They got a divisional game against the Bengals. They got to go to Chicago. Then they got Buffalo. Got to go to Baltimore. You got the Dolphins, but then you got to turn around and you got to fly to Detroit. Divisional game against Cleveland, and then you got to end the season with Baltimore.
Yeah.
Even if Baltimore wins 9 games, I think they still win a division. This is going to be a nasty division, and it's such a crazy turnaround because we are not the worst division of football, but based off the numbers, based off the records to end the season, we're going to look worse than the NFC South, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, all the injuries have definitely played a part, and the Browns, they just can't find a quarterback. In this scenario, we would have Buffalo hosting the LA Chargers. Interesting clash of styles there. Indianapolis, with their great season, would host the Denver Broncos. And if you're Denver, hey, you're the 6th seed. But I think if you got to pick any of those top 4 seeds, you're going to pick Indy in the first round of the playoffs, strictly based on their quarterback. Now, the New England Patriots would go to Baltimore. Interesting one there. The Ravens, maybe the hottest team in football. New England's been consistent, might win 11 or 12 games. That would be a fun AFC match there. But Amir, as of right now, I'll ask you the same thing. Who do you think comes out of the AFC if the season were to end with these exact standings?
Kansas City, and I don't see anybody on this list even coming close. I mean, I think
Yeah.
Buffalo's going to get smoked by Kansas City. I think when it comes down to it, I think as of right now, based on how these teams are playing, I think Indy would give the best fight to Kansas City,
Yeah.
but it's going to come down, game-winning drive. Mahomes is too good. He's going to put them away. But other than that, I think the Chargers will get smoked. I think New England can't hang with them. I think Baltimore gets smoked. I don't see anybody stopping Kansas City this year.
Yeah, for the first time I think ever in my life, I've actually predicted the Ram. Well, I predicted two teams that I think actually at this point are still my favorites: the Rams on one side, the Chiefs on the other. That was my Super Bowl matchup, and I'm sticking to it. Hopefully, it comes true because that would be a first as far as preseason to the end of the season outlook. But Amir, any last thoughts, man? We covered everything in week 9. It's Halloween week in the NFL. Things are going to get scary for some teams and exciting for others, but those are also our playoff predictions.
No last thoughts. That was a great show, fun show. Let's make some money tonight.